On January 9th, 2007, Steve Jobs, the previous CEO of Apple, revealed the iPhone to the world for the very first time. Unlike today's technological landscape, this reveal was actually exciting and changed the way everyone in the world saw their mobile phones. This was almost the very definition of innovation. The initial concept was simple. Take a number of devices that we might want or need in our day-to-day lives and combine them into one. Gone were the days of needing a separate calendar, calculator, camera, or iPod. So long horribly small screens that you could barely see anything on, let alone use the internet in a meaningful way. So it's no wonder that Apple grew into the monopoly it is today, controlling almost the entire world's phone market and becoming the standard by which every other company follows suit, whether that's for better or for worse. Regardless of the innovations other companies make, Apple is always on top. My very first Apple product was this. This little blue rectangle here back in the day, this was revolutionary to me. This is the iPod Nano, and I still remember the first day I got this. The idea of plugging this blue little rectangle into my computer, putting all of my CDs on iTunes, and then transferring them over and being able to listen to them wherever I wanted without having to take a stack of CDs and a Walkman. So when the iPhone released, while others probably saw a phone that could listen to music, I saw an iPod that could make calls. And that's what was important to me. Because back when these released, every single moment I was on any sort of transport, whether it be walking, catching buses, catching trains, and eventually driving, I was listening to music. My life suddenly had a constant soundtrack. And being someone who loves music and a musician, that was bliss. So everything else this iPhone could do was secondary to me. And that was largely true for most of my use with phones, even till today. And this wasn't just my interpretation. The original iPhone was introduced as combining three products: a revolutionary mobile phone, a breakthrough internet communications device, and a widescreen iPod with touch controls. One might even argue that there wouldn't be an iPhone without the iPod to lead the way. So naturally, this little iPod Nano turned into this. And the idea of having 80 gigabytes of music in my pocket was phenomenal. All the albums, all the CDs, everything I could possibly want to listen to. And then I got my first few iPhones. That turned into this, the iPhone 6. And this is what I was using circa 2016. Add this with my MacBook Pro at the time, and that was it for me. That's all I really needed. I was heavily into the ecosystem, my documents and music seamlessly syncing between my phone and my laptop. And it wasn't just me. I had friends and family who were sick of Microsoft's nonsense, and they ended up transitioning from PC laptops to MacBooks, iMacs, and into the Apple ecosystem. But we need to set the scene of what other companies were doing at this time, namely Samsung. See, phones used to have removable batteries. If you ran out of juice, you wouldn't need a portable charger. You could just take off the back of your phone and put another battery in. And that worked really well for some people. What about built-in storage? Well, if you run out of that, you don't need to upgrade. You can just put in an SD card, and suddenly you can double, triple, or even quadruple the amount of storage in your phone. Not to mention that if something happens to your phone and your data was on your SD card, you could take that out and put that in a computer, and it would be safe. The Samsung Galaxy S5 had both of these. And for the most part, the Samsung Galaxy S5 was Apple's competition at the time. Lots of people would say your iPhone doesn't have a removable battery and doesn't have an SD card slot at the hardware level. Never mind the amount of software innovations that to this day are still happening on Android while Apple catches up. But then came the Samsung Galaxy S6. And with it, no more removable batteries. This was one of the most egregious, let's just copy the iPhone moments. And naturally, every other phone manufacturer followed, because what Apple says, everyone else does. So now, when your battery health is low, not your battery health, you need a new phone because you can't replace that battery yourself. Maybe you can pay a technician, but the companies would much rather you just buy the newest phone. Run out of storage? Well, you could also get more storage and pay more in the next phone, or you could subscribe to iCloud or Google Drive or whatever other drive options there were. And if you didn't, there were the endless notifications, which still happen today if you've run out of space on iCloud. So while I wasn't in the camp of people who valued removable batteries and expandable storage, I still felt for those people who wanted it, and I understood that there were people who prioritized that. But then they came for me. The iPhone 7 was announced, and with it, one glaring omission. They had removed the headphone jack. Some people might not understand why this is such a big deal, and I get it. Just the same way that people shouldn't expect me to be so gung-ho about sports, I don't expect people to be so gung-ho about music all the time. So I'll need to lay out some groundwork to bring you up to speed of why this is so important for musicians, or just music lovers in general. When wireless audio was first standardized in 2016, and what I mean by that is Apple did it and everyone else would eventually follow, the highest quality you could get was so subpar, it was nothing compared to CD quality. Sure, you could get your 320 kilobyte per second MP3s, but it wasn't until 2022 when one Bluetooth standard for audio out of all of the Bluetooth standards, only one of them could achieve a potential higher than CD quality bitrate of 1141 kilobytes per second. But alright, you don't care about audio quality. You don't need to hear every detail of every instrument in your favorite songs. Maybe it's just for background music. I'm not going to tell you how you should listen to music in your life. But there's another side to this. And this is the real reason Apple did it. Because even if you don't care about high quality audio, you'll still be paying more for your headphones. This is probably one of the best examples of this. See these? These are the Audio-Technica ATH-M50X. These are some of the most famous headphones for musicians, audio engineers, producers, and music lovers all around the world. They not only double as great for listening, but also they're great for actually producing and creating music. And at the time of writing, this is their price. They haven't changed much in the last few years. In fact, one of the most important changes they've made in newer models is the detachable cable. So when your cable dies, you can replace it. Now let's see what the average pair of wireless headphones goes for. You see that right there? By Apple removing the headphone jack, they have created a whole new market of people to be price gouged. In fact, it's perfectly fitting for a company like Apple, seeing as how much they charge for even the most basic storage and RAM upgrades on their Macs. But as you can tell, this isn't the first time I've had this conversation with someone. And one of the first defenses I often get from people who think that Apple did a good thing here is that it made the iPhone 7 water resistant. Not only are there phones on the market that still have headphone jacks, although they are hard to find admittedly, because everyone keeps copying Apple, but those phones have a higher water resistance to what the iPhone 7 had back in the day. And even if we're going to pretend that water-resistant headphone jacks were unrealistic back in 2016, are we really going to pretend that Apple, the company that created the first iPhone, the company that could afford this, are we really going to pretend they couldn't afford to put a little bit more in R&D? Not to mention that this is the company that wasn't happy with the CPU performance from their previous CPU partner, Intel, so they went and made their own CPU. And now the M1 to M4 lineup of Macs all across the board have incredible performance. But a water-resistant 3.5mm socket is too hard? Now on to the next defense. Wireless is more convenient. Here's the thing. Wireless headphones existed before the iPhone 7. And you could use wireless headphones with phones that had headphone jacks. In fact, you could use wireless headphones with the iPhone 6 and 6S, the last models to have a headphone jack. So even if you're an exercise buff and let's say for example you wanted to go on a long run, well, you can take your wireless headphones with you. But when you get home and you want to listen to music in high quality and plug it into your stereo, well, there's a 3.5mm jack sitting right there. You don't need to diminish the quality through Bluetooth audio. It was truly the best of both worlds. And then the next defense, just use the adapter. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because around the same time, Apple made another change to another line of products they sell. These are the ports on the MacBook Pro before 2016. These are the ports on a MacBook Pro after. And while Apple has put the ports back, the idea was initially that we're going to create the laptop a little bit thinner just so you have to buy dongles to connect anything. Because at the time, USB-C wasn't actually that widespread and most devices were still using USB-A. And who sold the dongles? Apple did. So while I'm glad the ports have come back in newer models, we still have no Ethernet port. And you still need an adapter to go from USB-C to USB-A. So let's revisit the dongle on the iPhone. Now when I leave the house, I'm no longer thinking about just taking my phone and my headphones and my wallet and my keys. And if I'm going out with my laptop, now I'm thinking, am I going to need a USB-A dongle? Am I going to need an Ethernet dongle? Depending on where I'm going, now comes the dongle game. Not to mention that they're so easy to lose, and when I lose them, I have to buy new ones. More money for Apple. And even if you take care of your dongles, I have seen so many dongles break. So it's almost like a subscription service. Just buy better dongles. Okay, but now you're telling me that instead of being subscribed to Netflix, my solution is to subscribe to Amazon Prime. And A, hope that the company selling good dongles doesn't go bust, or B, they don't take a page from Apple's book and make the cable extremely thin, thus easy to damage. Thus, I'll need to buy a new dongle anyway. Planned obsolescence. And then there's the other side. What happens when I want to listen to music and charge my phone? Well, now I need a dongle for that because I can't plug in my headphones and my charger at the same time without a specially designed dongle for it. Except this dongle is extremely bulky and also another point of failure for my phone not to charge. This one's more of a nitpick, but a personal gripe I have with the dongles is that most of my headphones are actually designed with right angle adapters in the end. So that means with this phone and these headphones, when I plug this in, there's less chance of this cable actually being destroyed because it's running flush with the phone and it sits like that in my pocket. This is what it looks like with the dongle. Kinda stupid. And another defense, just buy a pair of USB-C headphones. Well, for starters, let's remember that Apple had to be dragged kicking and screaming like a whiny toddler to put USB-C on their phones. Thank you, European Union. So if you had an iPhone 15 and you had a pair of Lightning earphones, that is, earphones with a Lightning connector, then you upgrade to the iPhone 16, guess what? You need a new pair of headphones just for your phone. So now your old Lightning earphones are e-waste. You can't use them with any other products unless you have old Apple products lying around. And sure, you could use your USB-C headphones with either your laptop or your desktop, except that all laptops at this point still have a 3.5mm jack until Apple gets rid of it and everyone else copies them. And if you have a desktop PC, not every PC case has a USB-C header at the front of the case. So you either need an extension or to buy a new case, or to use a completely different set of headphones, making that set of headphones only good for using with your phone. And having 6 different pairs of headphones for 6 different connections seems a bit ridiculous. These are my 2 main pair of headphones, those Audio-Technicas here and these ones right here. That is all I need. Outdoor, indoor. If I want to use them with any other device, I can, because they use the industry standard 3.5mm jack. Let's swing back to the music lovers and musicians for a moment. Producers, audio engineers. Let's look at what they use in the studio. This used to be the backbone of my old recording studio. What's that down there? That is a standard headphone jack. Sure, it's not 3.5mm, it's actually 6mm, but that's also a standard. And that can easily be solved with one of these. It's not a dongle, It's a robust 3.5 to 6mm jack, and you can put that in there and be done with it. Changing back between 3.5 and 6mm is perfectly acceptable in the professional audio world. Here's the baby version. Headphone jack on the back. Done. Easy peasy. There are no USB-C ports here, so I can't use USB-C headphones or wireless headphones with any of this stuff. How about a different brand? They do have USB-C, but that's just to connect to the computer. What's that in the front? 6mm, 3.5. Done. How about another brand? Headphone amp. 6mm with a bunch of 3.5mm adapters should I need them. These are cheaper than Apple's dongles, much more robust, and much easier to leave in places you need them. Done. How about a completely different professional industry? Vision switcher, which ironically Apple actually said during their presentation that the iPhone 17 Pro Max was compatible with some Blackmagic products. But what's that? 3.5mm jacks for audio input. What about gaming? PS4 controller. 3.5mm right there, ready to go. Xbox Series X. 3.5mm right there. And of course, let's not forget about the Steam Deck. 3.5mm right there. I can use any of my favorite professional headphones with any of these devices, and I don't need a special pair of headphones dedicated just for that device, because it's the industry standard. So as a result of this, I kind of like having a headphone jack on my phone, even in 2025. And that's getting harder and harder to do. So companies keep trying to cut costs, literally cut corners, and keep removing the headphone jack. So every time I see anything about a brand new phone, my first question is, does it have a headphone jack? And if the answer is no, I'm not interested. But enough about this. Maybe you really don't care about a 3.5mm jack and you're totally gung-ho about wireless earphones. That's cool. I'm not going to tell you how to do you. But how might this affect you? Well, the same way that removable batteries, expandable storage, and being able to use real headphones with phones used to be a thing, my prediction, my guess, and it's not just mine, a lot of people have said this, is the charge port at the bottom of the phone now. And especially considering Samsung did their super thin phone last year, and now Apple's doing the iPhone Air, eventually the only way they're going to be able to make these phones even thinner is probably by getting rid of that port. But they won't do it once wireless charging and wireless data transfer has caught up to wired. No. They will do it way before and not care if you're the sort of person that likes to transfer data reliably between one location and another, one of those locations being your phone, via a cable. Not to mention that as far as I know, at the time of recording this video, there are no wireless charging standards that can beat a wire. Honestly, I'm surprised Apple didn't do it this year. They did remove the physical SIM slot from the iPhone Air, and I'm sure there are people out there who that will screw over. And I won't be surprised if the next iPhones get rid of it entirely. Seems like a little bit of a test. But why does it need to be like this? Why can't we have options on the market? Why does it always need to be line go up, copy Apple, everyone will follow that trend? Why can't we have phones that still have removable batteries? I currently use a phone that has expandable storage. It doesn't seem like it's that hard. In fact, they put it right next to the SIM slot. And why can't we have phones with headphone jacks? The market should be open to all sorts of possibilities. If you find something important, you should be able to find it. But unfortunately, the big monopolistic giant of the phone market sits there telling everyone else what to do. Even if it's not direct, they will still follow suit. And everyone else has to suffer for it. But people will keep buying iPhones. Apple's gonna keep making bank. And so long as they're making bank, true innovation can wait. In the meantime, it's all about cutting corners. And I think the headphone jack was the very first corner. Now when I watch an Apple event, I don't think to myself, what new features have they added? I'm looking at it with the mindset of, what have they removed this time? What have they done to make our lives harder and more expensive? A company once on the cutting edge of technology now can't even figure out AI. And the final objection. Some people say, what happens when there's no headphone jacks on the market in any phones, when everyone follows suit and not a single mobile company provides even one headphone jack? Well, there's this device. It's like an iPod, but it was made in the last decade and prides itself on being designed for people who love the quality of their music. But there are several issues with this. For one, the iPhone was meant to mean I have to take less things with me. So the idea of streamlining what you have to take out in a general day is kind of gone. And in a similar vein, now I have to take a completely separate music player along with my phone. I mean, some people don't even take their wallets with them anymore. They just use Apple Pay. But if I don't want to take extra bulky items in my pockets and the priority is listening to music, well, one of these devices is staying home, especially if I'm only going for a nature walk or just to get away from how busy life can be sometimes, especially if I just want to enter a zone place and listen to some nice music. You know what? Not having my music interrupted by phone calls sounds like a pretty good idea. So I think I know which device I'd be leaving at home if I ended up buying this. I mean, phones are just glorified tracking devices anyway for the most part. And no, I'm not going to take an Apple Watch so I can still be reached everywhere, because the point is to not be reached for a short period of time, because I don't need to be accessible all times of the day 24/7 as some people think they need to be. So if Apple announced a brand new iPhone today and that iPhone had a headphone jack, would I be tempted? Yeah, I would. I would genuinely consider it. Of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this could only last for a few years before they remove it again. However, what Apple has always lost out on is the fact that I am now free of their ecosystem. I'm not getting the AirPods, I'm not getting the watch, I'm not getting the HomePod. And I'm not suggesting to anyone anymore that they should get an Apple device unless it serves a particular need. But I think that's a good thing for everyone. Being free of an ecosystem. An ecosystem is how they lock you in, and being free of one lets you pick the products that are right for you rather than feeling obligated to pick a product by a certain brand. So if you feel like you're stuck in an ecosystem, maybe it's time to break free before that company burns you.